Greetings folks and welcome to the Electromaker Show. This is your midweek roundup of all things maker and embedded and lovely. We are finally back after somewhat of a break, and before we even start the show today, let's talk about that break just a little bit. The middle part of the time we were away, I always knew we were going to be away because of Embedded World, and if you follow this YouTube channel you'll have noticed we had a bunch of content from Embedded World where we were interviewing people and just generally looking about the place, and it was a really fantastic experience. I've never been to an in-person embedded conference, and it was really interesting to meet some of the people behind the tech I talk about on the show all the time. Meet a few people who knew about the show, which was a very weird experience for me to have people who knew me and the way I talk, and obviously I didn't know them. That was a very interesting experience. So yeah, that was great. I really enjoyed being at Embedded World. Unfortunately, in the weeks leading up to Embedded World, I was A, incredibly busy with a lot of work, and B, I got quite ill. And then I recovered just in time for Embedded World, which was fantastic. And I went there and I was coming back with all of these great ideas and things we could talk about with the show. And unfortunately, my first big public experience since lockdown resulted in me getting quite ill, despite the fact that I have been vaccinated and boosted and everything. I still spent several days in bed with the pandemic. You may have seen that I tried streaming last week, which was a great experiment, a great experience. We'll definitely be doing those from time to time, and if you are a YouTube viewer and you are interested in knowing when this is going to happen, you should get a notification in YouTube. I will be putting it on Twitter, but as always, the Discord server is the best place to put it. I very rarely tag everyone in the Discord channel. In fact, the only time I think I've ever done it is for the stream. But yeah, going forward, if you'd like to join in live and actually chat in real time with other Electromaker viewers, I'll be doing one of those the next time I have a week when I'm too busy to do a normal show. What other things are worth talking about? Well, I did an interview with Eben Upton recently, which was quite a wild thing to suddenly do. We talk about that a little bit in this week's show, but for the rest of this stuff, I think we can just talk about it in the show. I just want to do a bit of an extended intro because I've been away for a very long time, and I'm really, really glad to get back to doing the Electromaker Show, because at the end of the day, this is my favourite thing I do in Electromaker, and it's really nice to do so. But with that said, let's roll the opening credits. We're going to start this week's show talking about a couple of exciting Electromaker things. That's right, having just given you an update as to where I've been, one of the reasons I haven't been here is because of so many exciting Electromaker contests and things that have been happening. And we're going to start with the Eurocircuits PCB contest. Now, I've been making a bit of noise about this contest for a while because, frankly, to me, it's one of the coolest things Electromaker has ever done. Electromaker contests have been going for a lot longer than I have been a part of Electromaker. This was something that was already established when I came on board, and I've always thought it was a kind of amazing thing. So our previous hardware contests have been, you pitch an idea for a specific piece of hardware. The last one was the Nordic Thingy 91, and if your project gets accepted, then you get sent that hardware to then make your project, which gets entered into a documentation competition on the Electromaker website for cash prizes and lots of other cool stuff. Last time we gave away an Oculus Quest 2. Well, Edge Impulse did. Anyway, this time round it is similar but kind of different in an awesome way. If you want to come up with any kind of PCB design, it doesn't have to be something groundbreaking or new. It can be a PCB to just take something that you've breadboarded on a microcontroller and turn it into a PCB that you could put into a box, make into something, make your own, I don't know, temperature gauge that fits on the wall with a screen that has a PCB behind it. I don't know. But if you come up with a PCB design, you can get that PCB made up to the value of €500 by Eurocircuits, which is wild. Now, this is the contest page. I will, of course, be linking this in the description. But yes, getting a free €500 PCB is only the start. There is information on this page that you will need to follow because the PCB does have to make sense. It does have to be something that can actually be printed. They don't want to just completely waste time. But there are some fantastic resources out there for just learning the basics of this kind of stuff. But yeah, this is the bit that I find kind of amazing. You get your PCB back. You turn it into a project and you document it on the Electromaker website, and after the 8-week build period, so this is after you've received your free PCB already made and manufactured, you have 8 weeks to build something and document it, and the first 3 winners win €1,000, €600 and €400 for first, second and third. Sustainability prize of €500 for a sustainability focused project, and there will be a social prize of €250 picked by the public in a way that I am not sure of quite yet. But yeah, it's a wild contest. And I want to sort of give a bit of a shout out for Electrocircuits in general. Again, this is something that happened behind the scenes. I was told about this contest and I thought it was fantastic. And then when we went to Embedded World, I had the chance to actually meet some of the team. I met Dirk and his daughter and a few of the other team members. And there's an interview in the blog post about that here. I will also leave a link to that in the description too. But anyway, in short, the Electromaker and Eurocircuits design contest is pretty wild. And even if you're new to PCB manufacturing, this might be a really good way to dip your toes into it. All ideas are really open here. This doesn't have to be a very specific thing. It doesn't have to target any particular kind of embedded work. If you have just made your own convenience circuit for programming different microcontrollers and you want to find a way of making it more permanent, maybe putting it in a box, this is the perfect way to try it. Our next Electromaker update is about the Pico W, and if that picture looks familiar, it's because it's right here. I have it finally. The Pico W was supposed to come to me before it was even released, and thanks to wonderful import laws, it sat there for 2 weeks after I gave them all the information they needed, and finally just turned up at my door. However, in that time, luckily, Robin Mitchell has had one in his hands and has made a fantastic tutorial on getting started with the Pico W. This is how you can build a web server that will serve back a response using the Pico W's connectivity. And not only does this video exist embedded in the blog and of course on our YouTube channel, I wrote this up as a written tutorial, adding just one slight difference to it. This is exactly the same as Robin's tutorial. His is on Mac and mine is on PC, but the process is exactly the same. And I know from the old Pico, I had exactly the same experience on Linux too, because we're using the Thonny coding environment, which is a fantastic coding environment for people who are just starting out. It is very easy to get up and running, and yeah, I'm a big fan of Thonny. Anyway, in short, this will tell you how you can create a web server that will serve up a response. And I added a couple of things to it, like making it so that when you do serve up the response, the LED will very quickly toggle on and off. I don't know if we're going to be able to see that just here. Oh no, I don't have the web server running. What I did after the fact is just messed around by changing the response to the value of the internal measurement unit for the temperature gauge on the chip, because the RP2040 has an internal temperature measuring chip, an internal temperature measuring unit attached to one of its ADCs. I think it's ADC 4. I really enjoy the Pico W so far. I've been messing around with it just a little bit. I haven't done anything too crazy. As you may guess, if you are someone who's been watching the show for a while and know what I like, I'm definitely planning a Wi-Fi operated synthesizer. It's just going on the massive list of synthesizers Ian wants to build at this point. But yes, I will leave a link to this in the description of the video. It is a good overview as to how to get started in general with the Pico W. It takes you right from plugging it in and downloading the firmware through to getting a working web server going. Yeah, and Robin's made a fantastic video to go along with it too. Finally, in the big Electromaker roundup at the start of this show is the Electromaker of the Month prize winners for June. The Electromaker of the Month is probably the contest I love the most that we do. It's just this ongoing thing that whenever anyone is putting things up on the site, on the projects page, I'm on that project page every day. I'm looking for things to put on social media, to talk about in the show. But at the end of each month, a completely separate panel of judges goes through all of them and picks 3 to be the Electromakers of the Month, who win prizes and swag and things. And this month has been a really tiny ML heavy month. So let's start at the start. The Electromaker of the Month is, like I say, it's a competition, but there is a good reason to enter it, because all of this Nordic prototyping gear that Nordic Semiconductor very graciously have given us each month to give away to people is up for grabs. If you have the winning project, you win this and a $50 Amazon gift voucher, and the winner this month was Nathaniel F. And this project's wonderful. It combines so many fantastic elements. This is a GPS with Raspberry Pi project that uses Edge Impulse to then use computer vision to see litter on the side of the road. And then once it has found that litter, it puts it on a map so you can see a litter heat map of in your city where the worst litter problems are. I probably explained that terribly. The write-up explains it far, far better. But yeah, it's a wonderful proof of concept for something that genuinely could help. And there's by the way, the video is fantastic as well. The video gives a really good explanation of it all. I'm just going to whip through, but you can see what it is used here. This is a note card. We've talked about Blues Wireless on the show before. This is a Blues Wireless GPS note card with a GPS antenna. This is a Raspberry Pi, obviously, and a little USB Logitech camera. And this is all designed exactly. Yeah, you've got the clips here. This is designed exactly to just sit and look at things as you go past to see, is there going to be trash? Is there going to be not? And yeah, that's how it works. One final point about this I think is really nice is that there's already a training data set available for this. Nathaniel F., who won, did train his own model, but there's also a data set called p-litter. And this is a litter identification data set that's already available for you to use to train your own models. I just thought that was a really nice touch. So Nathaniel was our top prize winner this month, but there were 2 runners-up as well. And interestingly enough, both Rukshika and Timothy, who were the 2 second and third place runners-up, had projects that I was very familiar with because they were both also speakers at the Neuton Maker Day, which is a bit of a coincidence really, because I didn't choose the speakers at that webinar, although I did host it, and I didn't choose the winners of the Electromaker of the Month, although I am now announcing it. And it's a nice crossover to see. And these are both, again, tiny ML projects. One is a tic-tac-toe game from Rukshika, which uses digit recognition. This is an M5 stack core with an ESP32 inside it, and this is a TK Inca Python program for the tic-tac-toe game. You choose 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, or 9 on that grid, and you write that number with your finger with a dataset trained with the MNIST handwritten digit dataset. And this is all using Neuton, unsurprisingly, because it was the Neuton Maker Day webinar with people using the Neuton AI platform to train models to deploy onto microcontrollers. Timothy Malcher's one was fantastic as well. The Timothy Malcher Smart Shipment demo, yeah, this is something that you can, if I show you the bit where yeah, here we go. So you can pick up the package, you can put the package down. The inertial measurement unit inside the package tells you what is going on. It's a little bit of an update on asset tracking, and the idea is if you move it around or if you throw it or drop it, you will get that reported back to you. This project just uses a local network, but the idea being you would add some kind of cellular or Wi-Fi, cellular and GPS location stuff on it so that you can get actual condition monitoring of a parcel in transit. Really cool idea. If you are interested in the Electromaker of the Month, I'll leave a link to the general Electromaker of the Month blog page in the description. This tells you everything you need to know about it. The Neuton Maker Day that I mentioned just before was a webinar that I hosted, and I know that some of the Electromaker crowd were there. I saw some of your names in the chat, which was wonderful. If you would like to watch that webinar, it is available in full on our blog. This is the full broadcast. Later on in the broadcast, Stefano from Arduino joined us because there was some prizes to give away to people in the webinar as well. There is also a contest happening right now with Neuton, where if you create a project using Arduino and Neuton and you put that on our community projects page, you can win an Arduino, something from the Arduino Pro line. I believe it's a Portenta H7. I'm going to make a separate set of posts about this quite soon because it's quite an interesting competition. Anyway, I will link both the Neuton Maker Day blog post and the Electromaker of the Month blog post in the description, of course, along with our winners for June. All of these projects are fantastic and interesting. Now, that's been a nice big Electromaker update. Let's get on with some other content for the show. Just briefly, I would like to mention that I had the privilege of interviewing Eben Upton recently. He is the head of the Raspberry Pi company. He is the CEO. He's also the guy that started it all. A thoroughly interesting bloke, and he was gracious enough to give me almost half an hour of his time to just talk about the launch of the Raspberry Pi Pico W, the Raspberry Pi in general, some things going forward. And it was a really fantastic experience, a very interesting experience for me. I'm not an interviewer, at least I haven't been historically, and I was a little bit nervous. I don't know if it comes across in the video. I did notice on rewatching the video back that my outro made absolutely no sense whatsoever. I was just tripping over consonants and words, and he very graciously just smiled and nodded. But yeah, fascinating bloke, really interesting interview, which also went out as a podcast on the Electromaker podcast channel. This is the first of what will be several interviews with several different people in the coming months. I'm not going to say anything more than that right now because it's not all confirmed, but we are finally moving into interviewing some folks, which is something I've wanted to do for a very long time. And hopefully the more I do it, the less nervous I will get. Now, moving on to talk about MidJourney. There have been several AI-generated art tools to appear lately. They're all use a similar way of interacting with them. You write a sentence of something that you want them to do, and it will draw it for you. And yeah, MidJourney is that. It's just gone into beta. This, in the background, what you can see is the Discord server. And all of these images that you are seeing are images that have been created by people using /imagine and then typing a sentence. It's really quite incredible. Some of these say what they are, some of them don't, but like, let's see, man sliding down a mountain, ultra-realistic 8K. I mean, I don't know about the ultra-realistic 8K, but that definitely does look like a man sliding down a mountain. And all of these things are being generated all the time. It's incredible. The level of things that are coming out of this based purely on sentences is wild. Oslo cyberpunk style, hyper-realistic. Yeah, I'm slightly in the way. Let me just put myself out of the way. There are some kind of incredible things. I'm going to show you the website where you can sign up for the beta for this, but just while we're here, I want to try something. Let's just say, imagine Grumpy Cat in front of the Taj Mahal. I think that's something we'd all like to see, although it would help if I typed Grumpy and spelt it correctly. Now, I'm going to cut ahead here because it does take a little bit of time to think about it and then get it going. But yeah, you can already see, this is my one just here, and you can already see it is slowly coming together, and you will find out soon whether it has worked or not. Now, this is my Grumpy Cat image here, which is almost finished, but just before I move on to that, I wanted to show you this. This, slightly grotesque as it is the result of upscaling one of those images, which is another thing that I haven't actually looked into doing yet. It is another command you can send to MidJourney. And yes, as I say, as unsettling as that is, I do think this is also kind of stunning. So my results aren't necessarily quite as artistic as some of the other people in this particular channel. And by the way, there are multiple channels of people constantly doing this all the time. This thing is in the middle of exploding. But yes, this is Grumpy Cat in front of the Taj Mahal. This is quite the project. Let me just quickly show you its website. So the website itself obviously gives a little bit more detail about the project itself. It's got a really nice ASCII art thing going on here. In fact, if I just quickly refresh here, you can get to see it from the start again. This is just all of the different Imagine requests that people have typed into it, turned into some quite nice text art. I thought I'd show you that. You can join the beta just here. You can sign in with Discord just here. It's very easy to get involved with it. And funnily enough, I think I joined the beta, or I got some kind of an invite link, and then literally 5 minutes later, I think it got open to the public. And that's why it's kind of exploding right now, and a lot of people are using it. I highly recommend going and taking a look at some of the art generated by MidJourney. It is really quite astonishing, the level of detail some of it comes, some of the detail that comes through from the things that people are typing into it. Because you have to remember that this is an AI interpreting human text and then turning that interpretation into art that is supposed to be enjoyed by humans. It's doing something really quite special behind the scenes. And yeah, I'm really interested to see where MidJourney goes. Now, before moving on to funding website things and news and all that kind of stuff, there's one other project I wanted to give a bit of a shout out to. This is another project on the Electromaker website, making a budget game controller, but it also uses an Arduino in a way that I think a lot of us forget about, and a really useful way to work with Arduino in general. So this Arduino Uno game controller is a very first prototype of an idea that uses simplicity at its core. It's an Arduino Uno, it's a breadboard with a few buttons on it, and that's about it. There's a cardboard enclosure, as you can see here, and as you can see it here in action. And this video is fantastic, by the way. It's embedded in the page. I would suggest going and watching it. The thing I want to give a shout out about as well, firstly, the fact that this is actually a breadboard inside a box. And this is fantastic. The project that you actually do is better than the project that you just don't. And this is okay, it's on a breadboard, but who cares? It's inside a box, it works, it's been made into something that is functional. It is the first prototype. And what I like here is that this is an Arduino Uno, so you can't actually make it act like a USB host device. I mean, there is sort of ways around it that you can kind of make it work like that, but it's very, very complicated. What I think a lot of people forget is that the standard Firmata sketch from Arduino basically just turns your Arduino into something that will take USB serial commands from the computer. And that's what's been done here. Upload standard Firmata, which is in the standard example library from Arduino, and then down here there is some Python code which gives you a good example of how to set it up for serial communication. It's been minified, which makes it a little bit hard to read, but it's something that I've done a few times in the past. I've written tutorials on how to program an Arduino with JavaScript and how to program an Arduino with Python. They've all used standard Firmata. Anyway, this is a fantastic project. The video is also fantastic as well. I would suggest going and watching it. It really pleases me when younger makers take just a few components and just do what is needed to make it work. It must have been such a temptation to try and make a fantastic case for this and make it look wonderful and work perfectly right out of the box, or to get a completely different microcontroller so you could make it act like a host USB joystick of some kind. But instead, work with what you have and make it work. It's a wonderful way of doing things. To celebrate the show coming back, we're having quite a large competition this week, in that we are giving away the NRF 5340 Audio DK from Nordic Semiconductor. This, out of all of the boards that Nordic have put out recently, is the one that I found the most exciting. I have had a chance to have a little bit of a play with it, but in my limited time I really haven't had the chance to do it justice, and I really hope that one of you will. So on this week's show and on next week's show, if you're seeing this in the future, you can leave a comment which basically just has to have the hashtag NRF5340, NRF5340, and what you would do if you won this kit. And of course, you need to be a subscriber to the Electromaker YouTube channel in order to enter. And I'll give you those details again in a minute. Just quickly, this one, out of all of the Nordic boards, this is the one that I find the most exciting, just because it has high quality audio in and out built right into it, as well as, of course, Bluetooth Low Energy and all of that good stuff. If you wanted to do anything from prototype your own sort of smart speaker setup or some kind of a kiosk thing, right through to, you might have guessed what I'm going to say, some kind of really interesting synthesizer or audio manipulation tool, this is a really good place to start. And it's not a cheap development board either. I don't actually remember the exact price it sells for, but I seem to remember it was around 160 euros. I'll leave a link to this page in the description so you can have a good look at it. As always with Nordic, there's the introduction video. But in general, as you say, two 3.5mm audio jacks for analog in and headphone out. It has a, I can't remember the name of the codec on board, but is the power management IC, the connector, yeah, it's not written here. But I remember when I first received it and I was writing a little bit about it, I just was amazed at the amount of stuff they managed to pack into this one little development board. But yes, I'm not going to have this anymore. One of you is. So in a couple of weeks, we will be talking about winners of this particular competition. But to enter, you need to do the regular thing for most Electromaker contests of this type. You need to say what you would do with this thing if you won it. You need to be a subscriber to the Electromaker YouTube channel, of course, and you need to leave the hashtag NRF5340. That's NRF5340. In a couple of weeks' time, we will be announcing the winner to this contest, and whoever does win this, I really, really want to see what you make with it. I feel like it would be very difficult to make something that isn't cool with this development kit, and I really wish that I just had all the time in the world, if I was a student again or something, to just really work out every single thing that this thing can do. Because something that I have privately kind of wanted to find for a while is a development board that combines high quality audio with a really modern connected microcontroller. And there's a few out there with the ESP32s and all that kind of stuff. And yeah, this is the first from Nordic that I've seen that really piqued my interest. And I'm really interested to see what the winner comes up with. It is time for Funding Website Things, which is the part of the show where we look at things on funding websites, and we are starting, as we so often do, with crowd supply. Now, I had a comment a little while ago from someone saying that, what is crowd supply? And essentially, crowd supply is Kickstarter, but just for really cool little embedded things that we like. And yeah, it's kind of what it says on the tin. One of the things I love about it so much is that I can come to crowd supply and pretty much find something I will be interested in immediately. One of the things I hate about crowd supply is I can come to crowd supply and find something I'll be interested in pretty much immediately, and my wallet suffers terribly. This is a pre-launch project, however, so there's no money involved with this yet. This is just the idea, and as you can see, this is a fully realized idea. This will be launching, and when it does, or if it does get crowdfunded, it will be something that you can buy. And this is, as it says on the tin, an ESP32 based Power over Internet Plus board with a microbus socket and two handy add-on shields. And yeah, this comes with all the bells and whistles you expect from PoE+, a massive variance in input voltage of the Ethernet line, and also you can use USB-C power. They do break out a few of the pins of the ESP32, but really what you're wanting to do here is use the microbus click boards that click on top of it. And there are actually going to be two handy boards that come with it. Where are they here? So yeah, one microshield designed with gardening in mind, 9 signal voltage ground pin connectors, a temperature and humidity sensor, and an I2C connector. There's another one here, which is the PMOD compatible microshield, convenient 12 pin header. PMOD being the digital standard for ways of connecting to microcontrollers. As with all of these things, you can actually pretty much connect any of them to anything. You might have to do some of your own plumbing and wiring. Be a little careful with the voltage. But there's a huge range of microbus click connect boards as well. And the fact that this is designed for sort of outdoor use and gardening means that, well, presumably there's going to be some kind of enclosure that comes with it too. Even if you didn't use it for any of those things, a fully integrated ESP32 board with compliant Power over Ethernet Plus is going to be something that I think a lot of people find interesting. Yeah, there's all of the features and specs here. If you would like to look at them, you can head to the link in the description and see that. And if you would like to get notifications on this project specifically, every one of these pre-launch pages has a page where you can subscribe to this project alone. And when it goes live and starts getting crowdfunded, you will get notified. And I will be doing that too, because I'll be very interested to see how much they're going to be selling this for. We're moving over to Kickstarter now for quite a special project. I'm not really a watch person. I do wear a watch, and it's a relatively nice one, but it's functional. It's a fitness watch. In terms of watches purely for aesthetics or for clout or whatever, I've never really been interested until now, but not for the reasons that you would think. This isn't a Rolex. This isn't a timepiece by some very fancy branded house. This is a small team in Austria who've been iterating over a design for some time and have come up with something really quite unique. What you are seeing here is two Nixie tubes. They're not actual Nixie tubes, they're much lower voltage. It says Neuton tubes here. I'm not sure if that's the generic name for these or whether that's some kind of a brand name or something they've come up with. But essentially, it's a very small, very interesting looking 7-segment display. And immediately I know some of you will be put off by the fact that it's 2 digits. So you're going to have to wait. You're going to have to look at your watch for long enough to see both digits to see the time. This isn't here to be practical. This is, like I say, this is a purely aesthetic thing. And I really like it. I really do. What are we looking at here? This is a small microcontroller, small PCB. It has an RGB backlight. It has an inertial measurement unit in it. And that's important because the inertial measurement unit is what keeps the power consumption down. It's only going to show you this when you hold it up like this. And there are some user functionality, some user things you can change. I'm not going to go too long on this simply because I know some people will immediately be put off by the look of it and just don't want to hear anything more about it, and those who, like me, are very interested in it will be coming to read the page. It's really interesting looking at how they iterated over all this. A lot of these were handmade earlier. Obviously, if this gets funded, it's going to go into production and will be produced somewhere else, probably in China, I imagine. I don't know this for sure. But I love the aesthetics of this, and I would argue that getting a watch like this, and it's €289 for the super early bird price. It is not cheap, but I would argue that any other premium watch is equally as silly. If you are thinking spending this much money on this is silly. Ultimately, at the end of the day, you could get a €4 watch from the shop, one of those old Casio numbers, and it will last you forever. So if you are interested in this kind of thing, I'll leave a link to it in the description. They are so close to reaching their goal. They are just €600 away, and if it's the kind of thing that you think you might be interested in, you will be supporting a small team of people who seem very passionate and have worked on this over several years. For the back end of the show, we have some news, we have some new products, but first we're going to talk about a series of in-person events that Nordic Semiconductor are putting on. Now, of course, earlier in the show, I was talking about the Nordic Audio DK that we're going to be doing a giveaway for. This is more about Nordic sharing knowledge about their products. Now, of course, the idea is that hopefully you will use Nordic products, but this is an educational thing. This is happening all across the EMEA region. So there are events in Africa, there are events in the UK, there are events all across Europe. There's an event in Tel Aviv in Israel as well. And this is happening between August and November. If you want to be involved with this, I will be leaving this link in the description of the video. I would highly recommend at least taking a look at it, because these things you can register for. You will be hearing from Nordic's IoT experts. You will be getting free hardware to take away with you to learn how to develop yourself. And also, if you've never been to an in-person seminar, it's something I'd highly recommend. You meet like-minded people, and hearing about things from the people who manufacture them is a very good way, in settings like this, in an education setting, is a very good way to get acquainted with them, because ultimately companies that are making these things, they want you to use the tech that they're making. And these in-person situations are a lot more, personal than documentation and YouTube videos and all that kind of stuff. So, the Nordic Tech Tour is happening. I will leave a link to it in the description of the video. As mentioned, they'll be doing handouts of some gear, the NRF 5340 DK handout, some sneak peeks of upcoming things that will be coming out later from Nordic in terms of hardware. And as previously mentioned, there's a massive list of places that this will be happening. So head to the link in the description, see if one is happening near to you. If you are Germany based, by the way, in North Germany, and thinking of coming to the one in Berlin, I'll see you there. Moving over now to the Arduino blog. So last week Arduino announced another new product, although it's kind of not a new product. I believe this is a product that already existed that now has been taken under Arduino's wing and will be officially supported as part of the Arduino Pro line. And this time they are targeting LoRaWAN. So, LoRaWAN communication is very much in vogue at the minute, and with good reason. I mean, you can set things up in a variety of environments and have the kind of connectivity that wasn't really possible before for both cost and power saving reasons. And Arduino have now, as I mentioned, added some to the Arduino Pro line. This blog post is actually such a good breakdown of what's happening here that I'm going to really skim over this very quickly and just say I'd suggest going to read it, even if it's something that you're not 100% into. It gives you a rough idea as to where things are going coming with the Arduino Pro line. This is clearly meant to be deployed both indoor and outdoor. There are two versions for that. The light version is for indoor use. The Pro version, which is somewhat more rugged but also much more powerful, is for outdoor use. And as you're seeing here, it can be deployed in various ways. If you would like to know more about it, there is a separate page that links out from the blog post that I will be linking in the description that tells you a little bit more about it. You can also find the technical documentation of both the Edge Lite 2 and the Edge Pro, which interestingly are actually called indoor and outdoor products here. I didn't realize that before when I was talking about it, that it is that implicit. I suppose the idea here is that you had that rugged case with all of the protection here from ingress is what gave it away for me. It's not really all that surprising that Arduino Pro are making things like this, given the kind of customers that they're courting right now. LoRaWAN and these kind of solutions is being used in a big way, and it's going to continue to be used in a big way in the in industry and in manufacturing in lots of different places. So if you are interested in finding out more, head to the link in the description to this Arduino blog post, which links out to all the other relevant pages I was just talking about. We are moving on now to an article on the Spectrum website, which is really interesting. This is a pick-and-place robot using machine vision to sort through trash. The idea here is that this is going to be used in a recycling centre. Now this is actually quite a thorough article. It takes you through everything from how recycling started in the 60s and the methods that were used, right through to the challenges involved with how you can actually set this up. And as previously mentioned, essentially what you need is pick-and-place robots with a great degree of speed and accuracy and very, very fast machine vision algorithms that have been trained not only on what, say, one particular kind of bottle looks like, but what that bottle looks like when it's been smashed in the back of a recycling truck for the last several hours and has got things stuck to it and all this kind of stuff. This article is really interesting because it's from someone who is in the process of trying to get this working, talking about the challenges that it faces. In many ways, it is the most realistic outlook on how automation and AI is going to affect something like recycling from someone who is facing the problems already of how to actually implement this on a large scale. And there's some fantastic diagrams as well. It's rare that an article is so focused on exactly how to fix a problem. There's a lot of talk as to how we can make the world a better place, how we can be more environmentally friendly. There is unfortunately a huge amount of greenwashing both in corporate media and in media in general, because writing about environmental concerns sells. It's something that people are very interested in, whereas this is specifically based on the idea of here is the technology and how can it help. I found it very interesting, and I think you will too. And finally this week, this might have been quite a long show, it's very hard for me to tell when I'm in the middle of recording it, but finally this week we're back on CNX software as we so often are, and we're talking about the Orange Pi 5. So, as it says, it could be the most affordable rock chip, RK3588S SBC, and the S is quite important. Anyway, first, the Orange Pi 5 LTS, the upcoming single-board computer, which is a cost-down octa-core Cortex A76 A55 processor. It should be one of the best cost-performance boards out there, and it's going to come with some pretty beastly specs. Up to 32 gigabytes of RAM, a 32 gigabyte onboard eMMC flash storage, an HDMI 2.1 and DisplayPort 1.48K video, up to 2 MIPI DSi displays, 3 camera interfaces, gigabit internet, and Wi-Fi 6 connectivity, along with a few extra connectors like USB, and of course a smaller but still, of course, a GPIO port. I'm wondering whether this is a specific choice by Orange Pi to sort of try and move away from the Raspberry Pi form factor somewhat, because that is one thing that is interesting, is that not all Raspberry Pi alikes have worked with Raspberry Pi shields historically for voltage reasons and all this kind of stuff, but a lot of them have still tried to make it look like they would. I do wonder whether Orange Pi are finally sort of kind of trying to move into their own area of things. If you want to know all of the details of this board, they are, of course, listed here thoroughly by CNX Software, as they usually do. If there's one sentence from this thing that really, this article that really grabbed me, it's what was said about the Orange Pi specifically, which is... Shenzhen Junlong Software did not provide pricing information for the board just yet, but the company is usually quite aggressive on pricing, thanks to historically relying on the community for software support, which is a very polite way of saying that Orange Pi get boards made and out the door as cheaply as they possibly can, and one of the things they don't scrimp or save any money or time on is documentation or any kind of software support. If you get any kind of Orange Pi product, I have a couple of Orange Pis myself. They're fantastic. I love them, but don't expect much support. This is the long-term support board, so you can assume the OS images will be maintained for a while. But yes, it's not something that you're going to get a huge amount of documentation support with. Anyway, it's not out quite yet, but it said here it's expected to be more or less the same $129 Rock 5B board. Yeah, this is just a very interesting board, which will be coming out relatively soon. And I thought it was the perfect way to close off the show. I'm really interested how it's going to affect things going forward, because there's not going to be a distinct end point to shortages. It's just not going to happen. There's going to be fits and starts. Things are going to be sometimes available, sometimes not. But if they are still managing to produce large amounts of these particular kinds of chips and putting them into completely new boards and form factors, I wonder how long it will be before you will get a massive amount of community support to reverse engineer these boards that have fallen by the wayside, maybe because of bad documentation. After all, last year, or was it the year before, Orange Pi put out a board which was definitely comparable to a lower powered Raspberry Pi 4, but it was nowhere near as popular because it just did not have as much support, and no one was going to put the time in to do that. But I do wonder now whether, as time goes on, hobbyists are going to start opening up their minds to other boards, and people are going to maybe start making things for the less programmatically inclined to make them useful for them. I don't know. I'm just waffling about it at this stage, but it is something I find very interesting indeed. That is our show for this week, folks. Thank you so much for joining me. Thank you for sticking by the Electromaker Show through our weird little patch there where there wasn't so many shows. There was a lot of interesting things going on, but not the YouTube show. I know some of you have been really enjoying the videos from Embedded World, and I know some of you are a bit annoyed that there's so many videos that are short rather than the show coming on the channel. Those will not be there often. Whenever we go to a conference, we're going to film a load of interviews, but we're going to try and keep it close to the conference so that you don't get a bunch of notifications from the channel. I know exactly how annoying that is from other channels that I follow. But that is it for now. We will be back with another show next week. If you are not already listening to the Electromaker podcast, I'd like to remind you once again that as well as having this show as a podcast, we are starting to do interviews now. We interviewed Eben Upton. We have another interview with another member of the Raspberry Pi team coming up right now. Oh, who has actually, it's Alistair Allen, who's the head of documentation. He actually tweeted that he was recording the podcast with us, so it's not really a secret anymore. That's going to be coming out relatively soon, and we will be hopefully moving on to having a few interviews with different makers, different people in the industry over time. It's still a very new thing, but something I've been wanting to do for a while. Anyway, that is it. Thank you so much for joining me. I hope you have a safe, fun, and creative week, and I'll see you next time.